Hi guys, it's Mr. Gonzalez again, here with Lesson 17, Dotted Quarter Notes. The main objective of this lesson is to be able to identify dotted quarter notes and understand their note value. Let's go. Remember, a dot after a note increases the duration by half the original value. Here, we see a half note. It equals 2 beats by itself, but when we add the dot adds half of the value of 2, which is 1. So now a dotted half note equals 3 beats. In 2/4 time, 3/4 time, and 4/4 time, a quarter note receives 1 beat. Because a dot following a quarter note increases its duration by half a beat, a dotted quarter note has a value of 1½ beats. A dotted quarter note is usually followed by an eighth note. Here we can see what that means. We have our quarter note, which equals 1 beat, so it occupies the 1 and the and of 1. But with our dot, to add half of a beat, we need to take a bit from the second beat. So it will go 1 and 2. And since a dotted quarter note is usually followed by an eighth note, we have an eighth note here on the and of 2. So this dotted quarter note occupies these 3 subdivisions. Here's another representation of that. If you remember, when you have a tie, you tie this first note to the second note, but only the first note gets played. So just imagine this as this. So we can see the quarter note occupies the beat 1 and the and of 1, and then it's tied over to beat 2. And then we have an eighth note right here on the and of 2. We are going to clap and count these following 2 excerpts so we can practice using our dotted quarter note. Our first excerpt is in 4/4 time, so there'll be 4 beats in each measure. Let's count. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Our next excerpt is in 3/4 time, so there will only be 3 beats per measure. Let's go. 1, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Let's take a look at some exercises. For our first exercise, we are going to write the beats under the following example. Then we are going to clap and count. So here we have 4 measures of 4/4 time. Just a reminder, the top 4 means there are going to be 4 beats in each measure, and the bottom 4 means that the quarter note will get the beat. Let's add our beats and subdivisions. Now, let's clap and count our exercise. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. For our next 2 exercises, we are going to add bar lines to each example. Let's go. Here in our first example, we see we are in 3/4 time, so we will be looking for 3 beats per measure. Let's get counting. The first note we see is a dotted quarter note. We know a dotted quarter note equals 1½ beats, and that they are usually followed by an eighth note. So right here we see 2 beats, and then for beat 3 we see a regular quarter note. So we can put our bar line somewhere around here. In our next measure, we see a beamed pair of eighth notes. So we know a beamed pair of eighth notes is 1 beat. And since we see another beamed pair of eighth notes, this is another beat. So beat 1 and 2, and now beat 3 by a quarter note. So we can add our bar line around here. So in our next measure, we see another dotted quarter note and eighth note. So we know together these two equal 2 beats. Then we have a regular quarter note to fill out our third beat for the measure. We can add our bar line right here. In the next measure, we see 2 quarter notes on beat 1 and 2, and then a pair of barred eighth notes for our third beat. We can put our last bar line right here. And then our last measure has a quarter note and a half note to fill out the 3 beats that we need to complete this example. Great job! In our next example, we see that we are in 4/4 time, so we're looking for 4 beats per measure. Let's take a look. In this first area, we see a dotted half note, so we know a dotted half note equals 3 beats. So we're looking for one more beat before we can add a bar line somewhere. So we come over to our next note, and we see a pair of beamed eighth notes. So this can be our beat 4, and we can add our bar line right around here. In our next measure, we see a dotted quarter note and an eighth note, so we know that these two together are 2 beats. And then we see 2 pairs of beamed eighth notes, equaling 1 beat each. So our bar line can go right here. In the next area, again, we see a dotted quarter note equaling 1.5 beats, and then our eighth note adding that extra half beat for 2 complete beats here, and then beats 3 and 4 are filled out by these 2 quarter notes. Our bar line can go right here. Next, we see a quarter note equaling 1 beat, then a half note equaling 2 beats, and another quarter note equaling 1 beat. We have 4 full beats, our bar line can go right here. And then in the last measure, we see a dotted quarter note, an eighth note, and a half note to fill out our last 4 beats. And that's it for today's lesson, guys. I hope you feel more confident in your ability to identify dotted quarter notes and understand their value in music. In our next lesson, we will be looking at dynamic signs.